In this video, we're going to look at an undeniable truth. No matter who you are, no matter what you believe or what you don't believe, this principle or this truth is 100% true. And that is the principle that you reap what you sow, taken from the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verses 7 through 10. And in Galatians chapter 6 and verse 7, it says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." The phrase "do not be deceived" in the original Greek literally means to roam away from safety or truth, to go astray, to be deceived, or to be seduced. And needless to say, all of those things are bad. And so he begins by saying, don't be deceived. And there's a lot of deception in the world. And again, this is an undeniable truth. No matter what anybody tells you, this can be proven true. And it says, God is not mocked. In the Greek that's translated, God is not mocked, is quite a visual. It means to sneer with the nostrils drawn up in contempt. And so if you get that picture in your mind, God does not suffer himself to be imposed on by empty words. And there's a lot of empty words out there. People saying, this or that, or I believe, or I go to church, or whatever it is. And God, his word is clear. He will judge according to our works. Now, if you're a believer, you're going to stand before him at what we call the Bema judgment in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and we'll give an account for what we did with the free gift of salvation. We can build on that salvation, he says, with gold, silver, precious stones, or wood, hay, stubble. But if you're not a believer, you'll stand before God at the great white throne. But God will judge us, and we need to realize that we will stand before him one day. And a lot of the things that we have done in this world are the seeds that we have sown, and the reaping will be for eternity. And so it's important that we understand this principle that we see here in Galatians chapter 6, whether it produces fruit of joy or whether it produces fruit of woe. That really is up to us. And he says, again, for whatever, and that's an all-inclusive word, for whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. And this illustration of sowing and reaping, and we don't use the word sowing too much. We think of a needle and thread, but this is sowing or planting, and reaping would be harvesting, which is an illustration that comes from agriculture. And it's true in every aspect of life in terms of sowing and reaping. It's, as I said, it's an undeniable absolute. Sort of like gravity. If you jump from an airplane at 30,000 feet with no parachute, and the whole way down you scream at the top of your lungs, gravity's not real, gravity's not real. At the end of that, it's going to turn out really bad for you. And you're going to realize that gravity was real, and it's not going to be a good day for you. Let's just put it that way. And so this principle or this truth of sowing and reaping is so simple that even a child can understand it. And just think about this. You reap what you sow, okay? Or you will harvest or pick what you plant, however you want to describe it. If you plant an apple, for example, what are you going to produce? Well, you'll produce an apple tree that will provide more apples. If you plant corn in the ground, what are you going to produce? Well, you're going to produce corn. If you plant beans in the ground, what are you going to produce? Beans. You could go on and on with fruit or vegetables or even trees or flowers or whatever. And again, this principle or this truth is 100%. It's not like you can say, well, no, now you're wrong there, Pastor, because one time we planted corn and we harvested beans. There's no way, okay? It's 100% true principle. And as I said, even a child can understand this. And the issue is not just what you sow, but also how you sow. In the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 6, it says, "But this I say, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully." It's not that complicated, again, to figure this out. If you planted corn, let's say, and you had a 10-foot by 12-foot little garden, or if you had a 5-acre garden of corn, who's going to have more corn? All right. I mean, again, it's very simple. The person with 5 acres is going to have more. And so, again, this is an undeniable truth. It's an undeniable principle. He says in verse 8, "For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life." Again, we see the certainty of the language here. If you do this, you will reap that. If you do this, you will reap that. Sowing to the flesh, described here, compared or versus sowing to the Spirit. And a lot of what we do is sowing to the flesh. And we want to try to sow more spiritual things because we will reap spiritual things. You know, in Matthew chapter 19, the rich young ruler that came and talked to Jesus, and we're told in that passage that he went away sorrowful because he had great riches, and he was sowing to the flesh instead of sowing spiritual things. Even though he came to Jesus and wanted to know what he could do to have eternal life, it wasn't worth the cost to him. And that's really true for a lot of people when they think about what's it going to cost me? It's not worth the cost to them, to have eternal life. He says in verse 9, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart." You know, oftentimes this sowing and reaping passage is usually taught from a negative side. You know, you sow bad things, you'll reap bad things. And that's certainly true. Again, it's an undeniable principle here, but it's really talking about positive as well. When he says here in verse 9, "Don't grow weary while doing good." And sometimes when you are doing good, you grow weary, you get tired because you think, "Lord, are you not even seeing this?" Or Lord, you don't see what I'm doing. I'm trying to do things that will please and glorify you. But he says, "In due season, we shall." And again, just like we saw with the negative side, you will or you shall reap this if you sow that. Again, he says, we shall reap if we do not lose heart. And so someday, maybe judgment day, but if you do good, you will reap good. And sometimes we get tired of doing good. I know. I've experienced that myself many times. But in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 58, the Apostle Paul, the human author of 1 and 2 Corinthians, he says, "Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." And that word vain means empty. So what you're doing for the Lord, even though you don't always see the positive side, you need to understand that you're going to someday reap what you sow. In light of this verse, we need to keep pressing on. And I know sometimes it can be very hard, it can be discouraging, and we just need to be encouraged. We need to be challenged to just keep pressing forward and doing what's right. And in verse 10, he says, "Therefore," that's a word that's wrapping it up. And you've probably heard this before, but when you see the word therefore or wherefore, you ask yourself, what's it there for? And it's wrapping up what he's just been talking about. And he says here in verse 10, "Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith." And this is the true rule about doing good. He says when you have the opportunity to do good, and that language also suggests not just the opportunity, but the obligation to do it. When we have that opportunity to do good, we need to do it. And the simple rule is this: it's not that we are to do good just when it's convenient, which would describe a lot of people. They'll do good if it's convenient, or when it will advance their best interest in some way, or when it may contribute to their fame or their notoriety. But the rule is that we are to do good, as he says, when we have the opportunity. No matter how often that occurs, no matter how many objects of benevolence are presented to us, and really the more the better when you understand this principle, no matter how much self-denial it may cost us. It's not about me. If I'm doing good for others, I want to do good for them. It's not about anything I get out of it. No matter how little fame we may get from it, still, if we have the opportunity to do good, we are to do it. And we really should be thankful for that opportunity. And did you notice we are to do good to all men, not just to those who we love, not just to those who are our neighbors or those who have the same skin color that we do, or we're of the same race, we are to do it to all mankind. If we can help to reach or benefit a man or a woman who lives on the other side of the planet, and probably many people watching this have done that before, supporting missionaries, and we'll probably never see them this side of heaven. Still, we are to do him or her good. And again, that's what he's talking about. When you have the chance, when you have the opportunity to do good, you need to do it. And this is really what it means to be a Christian. He says, especially to those who are of the household of faith. And that's because as believers, we are in fact family. In Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10, it says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. And literally it could be translated all your might. For there is no work or device or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going. So when we talk about doing good and eternal rewards and crowns, the time to earn those things is now, because once you die, you're not going to have opportunity. As a pastor, I've been by the bedside of many people who have passed away. And one thing I've never heard anyone on their deathbed say anything about regretting going to church or spending time reading their Bible or spending time praying. But I have heard many, many times from people express regret for not doing those things or for not doing them more. So remember, the Bible is clear. We will reap what we sow. So be sure that you are sowing that which is good. Well, thank you for watching this video. I really want to encourage you to go to the channel, and there are a lot more videos on there like this that are short, brief Bible studies I think you might find helpful. Also, if you would like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone that might be encouraged by it, and subscribe. All of those things are helpful to the channel and much appreciated. So this is Pastor Dave for The Essential Truth. You have a blessed day.